3x minus 5y equals 30. Negative 3x plus 4y equals negative 21. If we want to solve the system of equations by substitution, it's going to be a little bit more work than the problems we saw last week. The first reason being that both of these equations are in standard form, meaning that none of these variables are by themselves. Thus, in order to substitute, we need to first pick an equation and get x or y by itself, and then use substitution. We didn't have to do that in the problems that we saw last week because we already had a variable by itself. We could solve that system that way, or we could use a different method called elimination. This is what elimination looks like. First, what I did is I just changed the subtraction to plus negative. But I'm just going to add our two equations together. On the left side, I'll start with the left side of each equation and I'll add the x's together, and that'll give me 0x. Then I'll add my y terms together, which will give me negative 1y. And then I'll add the other side of the equation terms together, which will give me positive 9. Based on what happened to the x's, why do you think this method is called elimination? I just continue solving for y by dividing both sides of the equation by negative 1. And I'll get 1y equals negative 9. Then I'm going to take my negative 9 and pick an equation. Here I pick this one. I could have picked the other one, wouldn't make a difference. And I'm going to substitute negative 9 for y. Now I'll just solve for x. That would be my final answer using elimination. Problem 2. Using elimination, solve the system of equations. Alright, now, first, before we start adding them, I want you guys to make a prediction. When we add the x's, we get negative 6x. When we add the y's, we get 0. And when we add the pure number terms on the other side of the equation, we get negative 6. Notice that our y's right here were the ones that eliminated. For in this equation right there, we have no y's. Negative 6x equals negative 6. Divide both sides by negative 6. 1x equals 1. 1 goes in the x spot. Pick an equation. And once again, we're going to take our x coordinate that we found when we solved for x, and we are going to put it into the x in our equation. I'll remove the x. Notice that this subtraction sign is still there, but just the x was the only thing removed. And I'll put in that 1 where x used to be. This will get me negative 1 plus 3y equals negative 25. I'll add positive 1 to both sides of the equation so I can get rid of this negative 1. And I'll get 3y equals negative 24. I can divide both sides by 3, and I'll get y equals negative 8. Problem 3. Use elimination to solve this system of equations. Which variable was eliminated when we added these equations together? The correct answer is answer choice C. And we can see that here because we have our x's, we have our y's, no variable was eliminated. We still have both variables. So we did not properly do elimination. We need to figure out what we need to do so we can get a variable to eliminate. What I'm going to do is take an equation and I'm going to multiply both sides of that equation by negative 1. Think about why I did that. after multiplying each side of this equation by -1, which variable will now eliminate? Let's take a look. So when I multiply -1 by 2x, I'll get -2x plus -1 times -4y will turn into +4y equals -8 times -1, which will be +8. So my new equation would be -2x plus 4y equals +8. And now when I add these together, my x's will eliminate. Now I'll just solve for y. And I'll pick an equation to substitute the value of 2, or of -2 that I found for y, into the y spot in my equation that I chose. Put that right there. I'm going fast through this because I'm assuming most of you guys are starting to get bored with going through these equations over and over and over again. So if you still need help, you'll need to review some of the older videos or call me over so we can work through those problems. Problem 4. Use elimination to solve this system of equations. Alright, so there's our two equations. We add them up right now. Which variable is going to be eliminated? Alright, here, same thing. Answer choice C. If I added these equations up right now, we would notice that -8x plus -8x would give us -16x plus -6y plus +y would give us -5y. And when we add those two, we would get -27. But I still have both variables. The goal of elimination is to eliminate, to get rid of one of the variables so that I can solve for the value of the other one. So like in the last problem, I multiplied both sides of one of my equations by -1. When I do -1 times -8x, I'm going to get +8x. -1 times y gets me -1y. -17 times -1 gets me +17. So then, when I add these up, I'm going to get 0, my x's cancel, plus -7y equals +7. Then I'll divide both sides by -7 to get the value of y as -1. I'll take an equation from my original equations. I'll take my -1 that I found for y. I'll substitute it into my y spot right there, and I will get 8x plus -1 equals -17. Get rid of the -1 by adding +1 to both sides. Divide each side by -8. And I'll get x is equal to 2. Alright, try this problem on your own. I have two equations that if I added them together right now, no variable would eliminate. This would become 12x, this would become -9y, and this would become +15. So I still have all my variables there. And I'll notice that if I pick either of these two equations, since they both have 6x, and I somehow made this 6x a -6x, the x's in my equations would cancel. So here, I'll rewrite my top equation, 6x plus -8x equals 18. That's just this equation, that's just this equation rewritten. Now, my other equation, -1 times 6x gives me -6x. -1 times -y gives me +1y. And -1 times -3 gives me +3. Now, I can see that my 6x and my -6x will eliminate, so now I'll add my equations together. This will get me 0. This will get me -7y. This will get me +21. Divide both sides by -7. and this will get me y equals -3. So far, that would actually get me my answer choice because this has y coordinates of -1, -6. Choice B is my only choice with -3, so choice B is my correct answer. Try this one. In this problem, I will also notice that no variable will eliminate if I add these equations together as is. But I notice that up here, I have a -3y. Down here, I have a -3y. If I could just make one of these sets of -3y into a +3y, then I know that -3y plus +3y would get me 0, and thus would eliminate my y's. I'm going to just multiply this equation by -1. I could have also picked this equation, but I'm picking this equation. This becomes +2x. This becomes +3y. This becomes +17. Then I'll just rewrite this equation, my top equation, just above that one so I can add them easily. And I'll have 3x plus -3y equals -18. And when I add them up, I get -1x plus 0 equals -1. Or -1x equals -1. I'll divide both sides by -1 to get x by itself. And I will get x equals +1. An x value of +1 is choice A. Therefore, choice A is my correct answer choice. Go to Khan Academy and you'll complete systems of equations with simple elimination. Then complete all your mastery challenges, your homework, and any extra credit objectives that you would like. Tomorrow, within the coming days this week, what we're going to be learning is how to deal with these types of situations.